works and just how powerful it can be during the course of a game. For any game, we always start off at the team screen. In this case, it would be boys U11 Silver, who actually play for the organization of the New Hope Jedi. This was set up originally in spring of 2013. This is our demo account. If you wanted to log in and create an account for yourself and play around with the system, this would be the account in which you would do so. All games, we've got the spring schedule set up here, and tonight we're going to be playing the Sith, so let's just get started. So for every game, there's a game information screen. The game information screen contains information about the game date in which it's being played, the time of day it's being played, the location in which it's at. And today we're playing at the Georgia Dome in downtown Atlanta. And any changes to the number of periods and the time per period. This can vary based off of if you're in a tournament or not, but for most part, at the youth level that you play, it's pretty well set. It can be a running time or stop time as well. Typically at a U11, it would be a stop time. Typically, the buttons over here would only say start game. We've been playing around with it a little bit today in preparation for this video. So today we're just going to go ahead and get started. We'll continue. Now let's talk a little bit about the game screen itself. This screen is optimized to work for a tablet, a 10-inch tablet. Works extremely well for an iPad. That's where we've done most of our testing. We are looking for other screens in which to test, but it does work great on this. It is written in HTML5. It is not an actual iOS app or Android app. And as HTML5 and JavaScript, it'll run on pretty much any device that exists out there. We do use a Bootstrap as some of the back-end stuff. I don't want to bore you non-techies, non-developers, but just note that it makes it where it will work pretty much on anything that you have. Now the screen itself is set up so that we get a little information about who we are, what's going on. This is a boys U11 spring of 2013. It gives you a sort of a snapshot in time. It also gives you the date in which the game is supposed to be played, August 24th, 2013 at 8 a.m. We're recording this actually in advance of August 24th, and we are certainly not recording it at 8 a.m. This is actually around noon. At the very top, there's an admin button and a legend button. The admin is currently under development. We'll be adding some functionality there going forward, but right now it's immaterial. The legend button gives you a quick legend of some of the shortcuts that existed within the game. In order to make this move as fast as possible, we had to make it a non-verbose system, which means that there's a lot of shortcuts. And so if anybody has any problem with the shortcuts, they can use this to familiarize themselves. And then, of course, at the bottom, you want to finish a game, and that's how you would finish the game. And once you hit finish the game, it's a permanent thing. The game's gone, it's closed out, you can't come back to it. So you certainly want to make sure the game is over before you press that button. Certainly don't do it if you're going to be doing a demo of the site. Then you would just have to set up another game, which is okay as well. Over here on the right-hand side, you see the players, not the players buttons. And what we've done here is we've kind of broken down the players based off of how they would play on the field, whether they're attack, defense, or midfield. This is not a precursor to saying that they can't play anywhere on the field. It is just a way to group them up. Otherwise, large teams, they would scroll beyond the bottom of the page here, and you don't want to do that. You want to keep it as compact as possible. So the way we did this is we broke it down by attack, by defense, by midfield. And again, you can go anywhere on the field. At the top, you see the timer with the pre-button, the period buttons kind of outlined here, a pause start button to go with it. You'll see that there's opponent-only actions since the games themselves in Lacrosse, trying to keep statistics for both teams at one time would be very difficult, if not impossible, to do. So what we've done is we've shortcutted it to basically say that you keep your own team's statistics, and if the opposite team wants to keep statistics as well, they can. We can tie the two together so that there's a little bit of validation at the end. However, right now that's not really necessary. But a lot of people, particularly the higher up you go in youth, whether you're U11, U13, U15, you do want to sort of compare yourself against the team that you've played against. And so we do have some low-level recording of actions for the opponent here as well. On the field itself, you see that defense and goalie are situated to the left. There are goalie-specific buttons behind the goalie. This is, again, to shortcut the process, to make it go as fast as possible. In our testing last spring, there were times where an action would happen and literally you would have to be pressing buttons for about 60 seconds and you would miss data. So this is a way to make sure that it moves as fast as possible without losing any data. Of course, you got the midfield in the center with a face-off button. You have your attack along the right. And then at the bottom, you have team-specific actions to your team. So, and things that wouldn't be attributed to an individual necessarily, such as a clear, such as a generic turnover that can't be attributed to an individual, or a team goal that also cannot be contributed to an individual. Those two are actually kind of rare. I've only seen them a couple times actually on the field, but they do exist. Before a game starts, you're going to know who the starting lineup is, and in order to get the starting lineup, you're going to want to populate the field. Since this is built for a tablet, it is touch screen specific, so literally touching your finger to a number, you can then drag that player onto the field into the position you want them to play. Dropping them onto the specific button will cement them to that button until such time as they are replaced. And they can be replaced on the fly during the middle of the game. So we're going to populate our field here with just some random people. Please note that none of these people actually exist. These are all made up names. I'm sure at some point some of these players actually exist. Some of these may be people who work for the company. Some of these may not be, but we're not really going to let that out of the bag now. So prior to the game getting started, you can go ahead and pre-populate everyone on the field prior to the first face-off. Now, there is a start button here where you could turn on the actual game itself, but we've also shortcutted that as well for you so that when you're ready to get started by pressing the face-off button, the timer automatically gets started. Now, in face-offs, the guy who is doing the face-off either wins or loses the face-off exclusively. Now, those are separate individual statistics that have to be recorded, and again, we've done what we can to shortcut that process for you. So whoever wins the face-off is whoever picks up the ground ball and gains possession. So in this case, we've given you a face-off shortcut, if you will. So once the face-off has begun, the timer's still running in the background. The guys are fighting for the ball, and whoever picks up the face-off then gets possession. Now, if you notice down here, we also have a console that kind of gives you a play-by-play of what you have recorded. We do that for a couple of reasons. One, so that if you miss something, you can look and see did you miss it. Or two, if you made a mistake, you can make note of the mistake. At a future date, our admin buttons will allow you to maybe correct a mistake as you go. However, please note that the lacrosse game moves really quick, and you don't want to get in the way of that as much as you can. So in this case, the face-off attempt was by number 21. He won it, but he also picked up the ground ball was picked up by number 17. So now we've got the action. The game is going. You'll also notice up here on the timer that the first period has now been highlighted, and as the game goes through, those periods will automatically move down the line. So that if it's green, then it means you're either in it or you've done it. So let's assume that number 17 now has the ball. He's moving down. He's going ready to score. He passes to X. X gets the ball. He takes a shot on goal, or he takes a shot rather. He misses. And as he misses, number 3 picks up the ground ball, turns around, throws it to 97. 97 shoots a goal. You'll notice immediately that our score is updated. And now we have a goal assist box that comes up. It says, okay, well, this guy here, the X, was the one who shot the goal. He can't get his own assist. Was there assist? Well, we just said that number 3 passed the ball to him right before he shot, so there is your assist. We will record it to number 3. Again, if you look over here, you see all of this is recorded in the console. All of this data is being recorded directly to the cloud. I should have noted earlier that this is a live application, and because of that, you need a live iPad or a live tablet, Android tablet. They can talk to the web in order to record this real time. And in a future video, I'll explain why. But let's just assume that we're going forward here. So now we're getting ready for another face-off. Face-off happens. And number 21 picked up his own face-off. We're good to go. Now, let's also say that number 21 then turned around and he did something silly. He got a penalty. Let's say he tripped the person across from him. He gets a 30-second penalty. Well, immediately you'll notice there's a timer that comes up over here. The clock stops during a penalty, particularly for a stop time situation. So we got 30 seconds on the penalty clock. We are now in a man down situation. And in order to get started, we press start on the button again. Not only does the timer continue to time away, but now the penalty clock is going as well. If we turn around and our opponents score, and which is why we have these goalie specific buttons down here, that if they turn around and score, then the penalty is immediately wiped off of the board, and we're good to go. Now, if it is a non-releasable penalty, and we will show that, let's say our opponent comes in, he gets an unsportsmanlike conduct, he gets a 2-minute non-releasable. Although in some youth levels the releasable non-releasable is pretty specific, it tends to be one of those things that is not enforced properly, at least not on the fields. I've seen it an unsportsmanlike be a releasable at a U9 and again at a U11. So you just, I left that here so that you can modify that as you want. So if we record a non-releasable and we get the penalties going again, so that now we turn around and number 34 comes in and he shoots a goal, gets a goal. No assist in this case. You see that the penalty is still running because it was non-releasable. It will stay there. The penalties will also run through the ends of the periods just like they're supposed to. It's a very nice way to do it. If, for instance, your team gets a clear or a turnover, team goal, any of these buttons are pressable. And we'll update the console as well as updating the database itself on the back end such that you can see the real-time information. This is very powerful. Let me run through the screen itself. So by clicking on the screen, it goes into a dialog box that basically makes it impossible to click on anything else. Brings up a very specific dialog for the person in which you clicked. You can have a shot on goal, you can have a goal, you can have ground ball, you can cause a turnover. But you can also have a turnover. Somebody takes the ball away from you. You can do something silly like have an own team goal, or you can have a penalty. And these are the basic actions. Inside of each of these, if there are additional actions that need to be recorded, we can record those as well. This is mostly based on the NCAA rules as well as the national high school rules. There's very little variation the further down the chain you go. US Lacrosse tends to keep these somewhat standardized, although they make changes for equipment and the way that some of the penalties are called, they tend to be the same. And so this is basically how we run business. Now, if you pulled somebody up by mistake and you don't need to do anything for them, you can click the X and it will go away. And all of this is running real time while the entire game is happening. So this gives you a way to quickly record information as you go. Now I'm going to pause this quickly. I'm going to switch back to the screen over here. And you'll notice that we have the game stats that exist here. By clicking on that button, you really don't want to do it during the middle of a game because you're in the process of actually recording the game. But if someone is not in the game, they can pull this up at any time and see an immediate an accounting of what's been going on in the field. You can see it based off of the position it was played, the shots that they taken, the shot on goals, any goals they might have had, any assists. We also go ahead and calculate the points for you real time, as well as the face-off attempts versus face-off won, the percentage you get there, any ground balls you might have picked up, any calls, turnovers, any turnovers yourself, and then plus we get the goalie statistics. Now all of this is a lot to digest, and this works real time. Literally the moment the game is over, you get the full statistics for that game as it goes forward. Now on a future video, I'll show you what that means from the standpoint of a season or even a career. We keep that data forever, and it's a very powerful thing. And thank you for joining us this time. If you have any questions, please comment below or come to find us on Facebook, LaxStats. Find us on Google+, LaxStats Live. Find us on Twitter, LaxStats Live, or just find me. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.